such a pleasure to drive back across the state line this morning on the way here. And I was in Washington, just out of jail for this work we were doing about the Keystone Pipeline that so many of you helped with when Irene came through Vermont. And so we were all watching, and calling friends and whatever with some horror. I gotta say, the moment that I really hit me was when someone uploaded the picture of this bridge disappearing down the river on YouTube. And it was, holy cow. I mean, think about it. The bridge had been here a very long time. Do we know how long when it was built?
200 years. No,
150 years. So it's been here. It's been here since the 19th century. Okay, taking everything that nature had to throw at it, and it didn't even come close to making it through this. And that's because the rainfall that it was built for, and the storms that our bridges and roads and things were built for, those kind of storms were the biggest storms you could have on the world we used to have. But now we've started changing that world in profound ways. You know, the temperature of the globe is about a degree higher, and because basic physics says warm air can hold more water vapor than cold, you get about 4% more water up in the atmosphere. If you're in a dry desert place, that means it gets drier and hotter because there's more water evaporating all the time. But water vapor molecule only stays up in the atmosphere about 7 days before it comes down. And so once it's up there, it's coming down, and now it comes down in quantity. And you know, we had places in Vermont where we broke our old rainfall records by 25 and 30% on that day that Irene came through. That's astonishing. I mean, we have 10,000 rainstorms that we have records of. If you're ever going to break a record, it should be by tiniest margin. You know, that's how statistics work, except that those records were set on a different planet. And what happened here was, of course, a real tragedy. But there are an enormous number of these tragedies going on now around the world, place after place after place. 350.org works in every country on Earth except North Korea. So we have a pretty good idea of what those tragedies feel like from the people in them, you know. And so we hear from our friends in Pakistan, who for the last 2 years have had floods so severe that 20 million people have had to leave their homes at one point or another. Or from Thailand, where in December they had flooding so crazily out of control that it did the damage equivalent to 18% of the country's GDP last year disappeared in that flood. Or in Central America, where they had floods about 6 weeks after Irene, the worst rainstorms they've ever had, and the president of one of those countries said, you know, last night we lost 15 years worth of development. That's how many roads and bridges washed away. What happened in Vermont was really, really bad, and as is often the case, almost always the case, it was the poorest people, even here, who paid the biggest price. It was trailer homes and things that really, you know, ended up getting decimated. But at least we had the money and the agency of transportation in place, and the bridges got back up and the roads got back up, and we'll be paying for it for a long time. But it's, you know, we had some means of being at least a little resilient. Most places around the world are just too poor, and when something bad happens, it doesn't get fixed anytime soon, you know. Everybody pulled together after Irene, you know, with exceptional community spirit around Vermont. We all got to see it, and it was wonderful. And in a sense, that's what we're trying to do with this Connect the Dots Day all over the world. We're going to have people from every corner of the planet next Saturday doing things just like this, making a kind of symbolic witness. And the point that we're trying to get across, whether, you know, the day will begin in the Pacific Islands, in the Marshall Islands, in the Pacific Ocean. That's where day rises first, and there'll be a whole crew of young people down underwater, scuba gear on their dying coral reef, you know, which is the most important thing they've got there, but it's dying because the oceans are turning acid and so on. And then there'll be people, you know, in the Horn of Africa where the price of, you know, is not enough food because they've had drought year after year after year, and there'll be people up in the Himalayas where their glaciers are melting with great speed, and there'll be people, you know, just in the Maldive Islands where the ocean is rising so fast that they're having to try and find a new place to go relocate their whole country to, and on and on and on. And the point of it all will be to have people saying, as people are saying here, don't pity us, we're not, you know, we don't want you to feel sorry for us, we want you to recognize the pattern that's going on around the world and do something about it. Until we're able to recognize that global warming isn't some future threat, a thing that's breaking over our heads right now, we probably won't take the kind of action that we need. The good news is people are starting to recognize that. The latest polling data just came out a couple of weeks ago, and it showed a big spike in the number of Americans who are concerned about climate change, and the reason is they have connected up all the freaky weather that we're seeing place after place with something larger happening. And that's a very, you know, important connection to be making, and that's the connection, that's what this Connect the Dots thing is all about. Each of these thousands of places around the globe will be another dot, and if people look at them and understand them, see them on the map, everyone will be able to do the kind of mental math to let themselves figure out that something is going wrong across the entire planet. So, this is the first place we get to do this, any place on the planet, and it's a kind of we're sort of doing it just so we have a kind of thing we can send out in the next few days to everybody around the world saying, here's one way that this can look, and here's how to set up the picture, and, you know, so on and so forth. So you guys are sort of the pioneers here, and if you get up on the 5th of May and start looking at the computer at 350.org, you'll see pictures like this flowing in from every corner of everywhere, you know, and it'll be great fun to watch, but you will have done your part a week early. So I'm extraordinarily grateful to you all, and extraordinarily grateful to the people down here in Rockingham for letting us come and do this. And would you mind just telling for a second, since you grew up right here on the edge of this bridge, and just tell us what it looked like for a second. And,
sure. I grew up here in the '60s. It was probably the most vital time for me as a youth, with a gang of kids riding our bikes here all the time. Steam train going by when Steamtown was operating. It was always fun. Swimming holes were great, and we used to play in the covered bridge all seasons, from Halloween tricks to hot days in the summer, to, you know, cooling off, to underneath the bridge, exploring things, climbing in the rafters. It was really it was great, and it was a great village to grow up in. And my dad's ashes are up in the pine trees up there, and a few years back my brother and I dumped my mom's ashes into the river from the covered bridge. So it had a special meaning to me, and it was really tragic to see that video of the bridge kind of collapsing into the river in a somewhat dignified way as far as collapsing can go. But I'm glad you folks are here to honor this spot, and hopefully we can prevent in the future more of this kind of devastation. So,
fantastic.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. So should we go deploy all
Let's take a photo.
Let's do it.
So I need maybe 8 or 10 people who might want to stand on the guardrail.
Can we sit on the guardrail?